You're listening to the Overcast, your joke-making, fun-having pop culture podcast, brought to you by Oversoul Gaming.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Overcast. I'm Justin,
I'm Nick.
And I'm Brooksy.
and together we're bringing you sunshine on a cloudy day. And random thought, but you know, Brooksy, one of these days it would be funny if you did like the Animaniacs thing where they introduce themselves. They're like, I'm Yakko, I'm Wacko, and I'm Princess Banana Fafana Fee Fi Fofana the Third. You know, but you can call me Dot. You know.
You know, honestly, I'm not opposed to doing that. Like,
That's fantastic.
Oh shit.
Oh.
Anyways, though, I don't know about you out there. You California people always have sunny weather, but those of us over here in the Midwest, that they call it, even though we're closer to the East, I am anyway. It's been on and off with the rain and the sun, and then the rain and then the sun, and then the cold and then the warm and the cold and the warm. It
Mother
can't make up
Nature
its
just
mind.
needs to make up her goddamn mind.
hey, listen, we actually had not one, not two, but 3 days of rain in a row last week, which was honestly such a nice break. But yeah, no, it's a high of 73 and a low of 50 today, so no complaints over here.
73 sounds cold for where you are.
No,
Yeah.
honestly, it's because there's not a cloud in the sky, and it's also incredibly dry out here. The 73 feels so nice.
Yeah, fair enough. Meanwhile, 73 over here is hoodie weather.
Oh, don't,
Um,
don't worry. The official outfit of San Diego is a hoodie with shorts, like year round. That is pretty much what you see everyone walking around wearing.
Bet.
around here, we used to call that the Kenny. Nick knows what I mean.
Yes, I do.
Alrighty. Speaking of Nick, I'm gonna have him go first into this episode's life updates because he's got some of the biggest news to drop. Big old bombshell.
So, I did a thing. Last Tuesday, I bought an engagement ring with the intention of proposing. After I bought the ring, I called my Iowa Wild representative. And I said, Jack, I got a huge favor for you. Can you do everything in your power to make sure that the kiss cam points directly at our seats for Saturday's game? He said, reason I say is because I'm proposing. He said, absolutely, let me get a hold of the game day production manager and we'll get something set up for you. So I'm in contact with him throughout the week leading up to game day. I meet him at the Iowa Wild 365 area. I show him the picture of the ring. Sarah's mom was in on it, and she brought the ring to the arena with her. Sarah and I went to dinner before the game at Jethro's Barbecue right down the street from the arena. No idea anything is happening. And we get into the arena, and Sarah, we get to our seats. Sarah goes to get something to drink, and her mom says, "Hey, do you want me to give you this to you now?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea." So I'm hanging on. I got the ring in my hoodie pocket the entire game. I'm nervous. Third period rolls around. That's usually when the kiss cam happens. And My daughter has to go to the bathroom. Sarah's the one that is taking her to the bathroom. I start to panic. I'm like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. What if it
Oh
happens
no.
while she's taking? What if it
Oh
happens
no.
while she's taking Willow to the bathroom?
Oh God,
Oh no! Like,
this is a scene from a rom-com.
and they come back to they come back to the seats. Kiss cam hasn't happened yet, so I calm down. My that weight was lifted. So I am now watching the clock. There's 3 minutes left in the third period, and Kiss Cam hasn't happened yet. So I'm like, okay, when's it gonna happen? It better be during this next break. So on comes Kiss Cam. I'm ready. I'm shaking, and we don't end up on Kiss Cam. My heart
Oh,
drops. Yeah. So I look at
No.
Sarah and I look at Sarah and I go, I'll be right back. I go to find Jack. I'm like, Jack, what happened? He's like, did you guys not make it up there? I said, no, we didn't make it up there. What? He's like, oh shit, I texted Emily and everything. The whole the game day producer, your seat location and everything. It was all set up. I am so effort that you did. I appreciate everything. I'm gonna go ask the question anyways. So Sarah sits in the aisle seat. She would stand up so I could get to my seat. So instead of going to my seat like I normally would, I get down on one knee. I pull out the ring and she goes, what's happening? And I look at her and I go, will you marry me? And she said yes.
there you go.
I know that was really, really played out. There's it was worth
Well,
it.
here's the thing. Yeah, that's how you know life isn't a movie. Because if it was a movie, how it would have played out is when you got down, all of a sudden they managed to throw some shit together last minute, and you appear on the cam anyways.
Right. Yeah,
Right when it
exactly.
happens.
However, when we did stop to see Jack on the way out of the arena, uh, to show him the ring. And he's like, I am so sorry, you guys. To make it up to you, I'm gonna get you guys a jersey.
Wow, that's
I'm
cool.
like,
Okay.
so Sarah's at the game right now as the game is over now, so she's ready to leave the arena. But she picked up the jersey tonight. It's a replica jersey of last year's warm up jerseys. It's the Iowa Wild logo, and then um the jersey itself is real tree camouflage.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is
Nice.
pretty cool. Um but we made a a trip uh this week out to your neck of the woods, Justin.
That you did. That you did.
Y- Yeah. Well, we weren't able to make it out to Rockford for Christmas, so we made a trip out there since my daughter had was on spring break. We took advantage of that and took a 1 day trip. We did gift exchange. My mom got me a Jason Voorhees hockey jersey from
Oh,
Tina's.
Yeah.
awesome. Nice.
Yeah, the number 13 on the back and Voorhees. that was pretty cool. But I also during that trip got to see my uncle in not so fortunate circumstances. He had a stroke.
Oh no.
And it wasn't just one of those. It wasn't just any stroke. It's one of those strokes where several smaller strokes come right after.
Oh.
And he's already got dementia, so that was already a concern. Thankfully, he's making a full recovery. Uh, he's no longer in the hospital. He is in a rehabilitation center not too far from the hospital that he was in. But I have that man to thank for my love for hockey. He took me and my brother to our very first Rockford Ice Hogs game. Right, yeah, Rockford Ice Hogs game, like way back when.
Oh
And
wow.
I would have kicked myself if I didn't make some sort of an effort to at least go see him. I'm glad I got to see him.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got to as well, man.
Yeah.
Me too. It was an emotional trip. Um but we before we left town, we stopped and we grabbed lunch at a restaurant that yeah, that's known for its deli meat.
Oh,
Yeah, it's this makes a good
It was nice. It was nice actually getting to see you at work, bro.
this makes a good transition into my turn. Yeah, Nick and his mom and his daughter and Sarah stopped at where I work for lunch on the way back out because the hospital that his uncle is at is in the town I live in, or was at, is in the town I live in. So they stopped out there, and you guys managed to squeeze in right before it got super busy because it was a Friday, wasn't it? No, you can't.
Yeah, it was.
It was
No, it was
a
a
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah,
It was Thursday.
it was a Thursday. Well, let me tell you, yesterday was Friday, and yesterday was busy as hell because every Friday we sell hella fish, and it's because I don't know, people are just programmed to want certain food on certain occasions. Like everybody always eats.
It's Fish Fry Friday.
Exactly, that's it.
That's
You know,
right.
it's Tuesday, I want a taco. It's Friday, I want a fish. Like, why can't you just eat this shit whenever? Why does it have to be a certain day? I don't get it. Like, it's like
Listen.
it's March. It's March, so now magically we're selling thousands of Reubens every day. Like, why not just eat it when you want it? Why does it have to be a special time? I don't get it. So, like, I
Happy Saturday patties, man.
I should not work in fast food. My brain is not wired for it.
Oh.
I overthink all this mundane shit way too much. But you know, it was nice to see y'all. Even if it was for a brief
Yeah.
minute while I went out to refill my root beer.
Hell yeah.
It yeah, it's nice either way. Honestly, though, it's probably for the better that there wasn't any time to actually hang out here because now that spring's here, I've been doing a little bit of spring cleaning. As you already saw, I rearranged my room and
Mhm.
I hung up a blanket on the wall that I'm speaking towards, so hopefully my audio will sound a little bit better and a little less like I'm in an open room. You know what I mean? A less
Right.
less airy sounding. I don't know what the fucking word for it is, but you know, I need more baritone. Need it to sound more muffled. You know, like yeah. So yeah, so a lot of stuff is like completely torn apart right now. It's not really company viable at the moment as I'm trying to rearrange everything and deep clean places that I usually neglect on a normal cleaning. So, you know, that means like moving the computer desk out and getting underneath and behind it, and I rearranged some other shit in the living room too, stuff like that. So, um, It's basically been just that for me, but also still playing Avowed. Wanted to finish it before Shadows came out. Did not manage to do that because I ended up getting into a trophy hunting nostalgia mood, and that's gonna that is gonna lead directly into what I'm gonna do for my media corner later here tonight. It's gonna be a retro rec-a-view, if you will. Um, that's a recommend and a review for those keeping score. Um, but I did purchase a physical copy of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Unfortunately, with the closing down of the only GameStop in 20 miles from me, the only place out here now to get physical copies is Walmart. But
Oof.
I did go and grab it on release day, and I've been playing the hell out of it since. Like, I've just been binging it. And much like you, Brooksy, with Kingdom Come, I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of what this game has to offer, even with, like, the, I don't know, probably good 6 or 7 hours I've put in by now.
Yeah.
So, I am nowhere near able to give a proper review on it yet because I feel like I need way more time in the game and more time with both characters instead of just one of them to really get a feel for it. All I will say is, though, this is in my top so far. This might be in my top 5 Assassin's Creed games of all time. I think it's my favorite one I've played since Syndicate, and I liked Mirage, but like Odyssey and Valhalla were overwhelming for me. I never did finish either of them. I did finish Origins, though. I finished all of them up to Origins, and then Odyssey just had too much shit on the map, and I was like, this is... I can't... I don't know. But, I will say, though, this game does not hold your hand in the way previous games did in terms of, like, guiding you to your next quest objective. It gives you what I would call mild guidance, where it basically, once you track an objective, it tells you where on the map to find the thing, and then you have to go there and then just kind of look around until you find it, or whoever it is. But you can hold down the L2 button to highlight objects of interest, and if you see a big shining blue dot, that's the thing. That's where you need to go. So it's not that hard to figure it out. There is an accessibility option you can turn on that turns on the classic guided mode, go here, dummy neon sign thing that, most open world games have, waypoint markers. But it disables some trophies if you do that. So... I opted not to. I was like, all right, we'll make the most of it. It's not that bad, though, because you can recruit scouts, and you can apply scouts to certain areas of the map, and they will find intel for you and open up more of the map, and those quest markers will show up if you send scouts there, so you don't always have to go play Sherlock Holmes to find everything. But this game is not it doesn't guide you like the previous ones do with, like if you're... for example, in order to find one of the targets I needed to kill, I literally had to go eavesdrop on some people to learn something about these weapons being sold. Then I had to go get a special dress and some silk from a pirate ship to make the dress, to go and then learn about tea etiquette, to go sit down undercover at a tea party where my target was one of the other women there, and then I had to use context clues based off of the things they were talking to me about to discern which of them was the actual target, and all I can say is thank fucking God I got it right. Because otherwise I would have killed an innocent woman that night. And that's also where this game has dialogue options that come in. That's one of them. But you can turn on another accessibility option, is canon mode, where the game makes all those choices for you and goes along with the proper what actually happened story. Because your choices can actually change some things. Like in the beginning, for example, when you're playing as Yasuke in the prologue, when the Emperor asks if you understand what they're saying, like if you know the language, you can choose to stay silent like your owners told you to, or you can speak up and be truthful and say, yes, I know what you're saying. And it changes the cutscene that happens after it completely. The what happens at the end is still the same, but the dialogue that leads up to it and the scenes that play out are completely different leading up to that transition, which I thought was cool because I chose in my main playthrough to stay quiet, and then when I did the prologue again in canon mode for the sake of recording that footage, in canon mode he chose to speak up on his own and admit that he could understand them. So I got to see it play out both ways. The combat is the best it's ever been in the series, in my opinion. It definitely is borrowing heavily from both the Souls games and Ghost of Tsushima, but it works very, very well. I think. It more so when you're playing as the samurai. The samurai combat is very heavy feeling, and he's very powerful. Yasuke, you can even do that like anime move where they like fly forward really fast through the enemy and then like in the blink of an eye, and then there's a delayed reaction for a second, and the enemy starts bleeding and then falls over and dies. Like this is actual move you can do in this game. It's insane. And as always, as any game set in feudal Japan, the graphics are beautiful. This might be the best looking Assassin's Creed game too, quite frankly. Yeah, like visually, one of the best looking. So,
Nice.
yeah, it is. I am absolutely loving it so far. Yeah, Naue, the girl, is more classic Assassin's Creed gameplay. She's very stealthy. When you're playing as her, you focus mostly on stealth. But if you're playing on Forgiving or Story difficulty, you can get away with doing combat. I'm playing on Forgiving. There's Story, Forgiving, Normal, and then after Normal, there's like Hard or whatever, like Punishing or something like that. I'm playing on Forgiving, which is basically easy, because Story mode is easier than easy in most games. Basically, it's invulnerability mode for all intents and purposes. But even on Forgiving, Naue is not designed for head-on combat. She's definitely designed for stealth, because if you go for head-on combat with her, you're going to want to get all of your moves perfect, because taking a hit as her takes a lot of health away. She is not designed to take much punishment. You know, she's a glass cannon, basically, because she's got good combat moves. Whereas Yasuke, on the other hand, is an absolute fucking tank. So yeah, and his gameplay is way more combat focused. It's like the difference between Eevee and Jacob Fry in Syndicate. So
that's cool.
Yeah. But you can't switch between them at will. That you play as both of them at different parts of the story, and there are parts with Naue where you can go, there's these mats you can sit on and you do a little quick time event, and then she does a flashback and it relives a memory of her past that gives you more on her origin and backstory and time with her dad. Because this whole thing is a revenge story, basically. It's kind of like The Last of Us Part 2 if Naue was Ellie and Yasuke was Abby. Except he wasn't directly involved in what happened to get her want revenge, but he is working for the Emperor who raids her village in the prologue. So it's kind of, they're on opposite sides of the coin here. They're on opposite sides of the fight. But she is basically looking to get revenge on a group of masked targets that killed someone she cared about. And that's what the game basically is. You're going around getting info about these 7 different targets and picking them off one by one when you're playing as her on a revenge quest, Kill Bill style. And speaking of Kill Bill, some of the cutscenes in this game feel like they were directed by Quentin Tarantino. I shit you not, in the prologue when the villains come rolling in all with their masks and stuff, the music actually goes... It was like very Western and Japanese at the same time. I love it. So this game, I think, is definitely going in the top 10 this year. No question about that. And as of right now, it probably won't be my game of the year, but as of right now, with the options I have, it's the only candidate at the moment.
Shit.
For
okay.
Yeah. Quite frankly, because as much as I loved Lost Records, that's not Game of the Year material. Um, for my standards, anyway. It would probably be in the top 5, but not Game of the Year. So, anyways, though, that's what I've been up to. Oh, and I still love Avowed, but the difficulty curve, I had to turn the difficulty down in that game because the difficulty curve in that game is extremely unfair.
Oh.
That's all I can say. Like, you'll be slapping shit around in the area you were just in, and you get to the next area, and you're gonna get your ass handed to you until you upgrade your shit to the next tier. So, yeah. Anyways, though, what have you been up to, Brooksy?
Well, I am thrilled to say that as of about 3-4 days ago, I'm officially off of my deathbed. Again, very sorry that I was not here for the last session, but I am glad that I was still able to write in. Um, I really, the biggest thing that I have done over the past couple of weeks is I have officially completed Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Very, very, very happy that it's done, but also very, very, very sad that it is over. I fully intend on doing a separate episode entirely dedicated to talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, my entire thoughts on the game. And I know when I talked about the review in progress, I said that, it looks like a 9 for me right now, could be a 9.5. There are some serious bug issues that are currently happening with it that is keeping me from being able to put this at a 10. I also want to see how the story fleshes out. They had released a full 1.2 patch update that I think is one of the lengthiest written out update patches in gaming history. It was 32 pages worth of patches that they had done. And it fixed just about every complaint that I had, especially the major complaint of the shuttering issue. Between that and between finishing and getting to see the entire story, this game is not just my game of the year, and I genuinely do not think it will change from KCD2. This game is battling for my personal favorite video game I have ever played, and I am so
Nice.
excited. Thank you. I am so excited for the opportunity to be able to talk about it at full great length. So I plan on doing that soon. Otherwise,
You heard it here first, everybody. A Brooksy solo spoiler cast. Stay tuned.
it is going to be quite an event. I've made sure to do a lot of recording of events that I have personally done, whether they be chivalrous or not. And there are several moments that are not. But I no,
I look
I'm very
forward to it.
excited. I'm very excited to be able to share my full opinions with y'all. Otherwise, I really want to. I really wish I had more to share that was incredible and exciting and everything else. But it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of being incredibly sick due to a wonderful 7-year-old that comes over to our house every other weekend. And just to let y'all know, it's not creepy. My roommate has kids, and he was super sick last time he was over here. But the only other things I've had is nothing incredibly fun, I would say. I did receive unfortunate news yesterday morning that someone that I used to work with ultimately had passed away. It was a guy by the name of Steven, an incredible human being that I had the pleasure to not only work with at Torchy's Tacos when I lived in Texas, but also someone prior to that that I had served and hung out with at a bar that I had managed at that time. It was an incredible human being. Really enjoyed every memory that I've ever had with him. He unfortunately he had slipped into a coma about a month ago, and I had been made aware of that. He needed 2 separate transplants that just unfortunately were not going to make it to him in time, which is why he no longer walks this plane. That I also had a separate family member of mine pass away yesterday. Two couple bad moments back to back.
Damn.
Someone that I spent a fair amount of time with growing up when I was younger. My uncle lives in upstate New York, where a lot of my family on my mom's side is originally from. And I was given a heads up about it late last night via text. Nothing overly joyous minus KCD2. But that's what's been going on over here. So thrilled to be feeling better. Thrilled to be back on the podcast this weekend.
Thrilled to have you back. As I was telling you in the prep, when you listened to our last episode, when I was editing the last episode, I was like, man, without Brooksy, me and Nick sound really unhinged. You know, he brings a certain level of balance to the show. I think is definitely needed. But you know what, though? Some of me and Nick's unhinged moments have led to some of the funniest moments on the show in the past. Like,
hell yeah.
That time when I got the Charlie horse and Nick thought I fell out of the chair and started laughing. That
was fantastic.
Or when we did the spoiler cast for Has Been Hotel and Nick compared himself to Angel Dust and I just fucking went wild with the jokes and completely lost it.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh.
I even clipped that part separately.
Big fan of Poison, aren't you, huh?
It was. I'm gonna have to send you that particular audio clip because it's one of the funniest fucking things that's ever happened on this show.
That's so good. I very much look forward to hearing that, and I will say as a last note on all of that. If I could have told my past self when I was 10 years ago, when I'm in my early 20s, did you know at one point you're going to be looked as a person of balance? I would have laughed at myself so hard. So unbelievably hard. Been like, you are a literal crackhead, my man. Like, what are you talking about? Not like literal. Haven't touched crack, don't do crack, kids. But at the same time,
nah. Truthfully, man, I think your media literacy is better than mine. Quite frankly, so
I appreciate the kind words. I just, I very much love the hobbies that I love, and this space has been just wonderful to get to express that and get to have like-minded individuals to weigh opinions with, and nowhere else I'd rather be.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
We love having you here. It's this has been a great season so far, I tell you what. Every episode's been an absolute banger. All right. Well, speaking of media literacy, I say that makes a good transition into the media corner.
Yeah, let's mosey on over.
Let's do it.
Let's give it everything we've got. It's punishment time!
All right, everybody, here we are at the media corner, the part of the show reserved for news, reviews, recommendations, and sometimes previews. And, you know, I like to keep things in a different order than the life updates, so I'm going to go first here because I've had, I'm going to do something a little different because I almost exclusively usually review newer stuff on here, more recent movies, recent shows, recent games. Not this time. This time, I'm doing a retro recommend/review for an entire franchise.
All right.
And that franchise is made up of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, about 5 games and an anime.
All right.
And it is called Danganronpa. Now, Nick, our mutual friend Christina, had tried to get me into this for a long time. She recommended it to me quite a bit because she thought I would like it. And I can't believe I slept on it for so long, because I really did. I actually finally got around to playing the first game in the series a few years ago during the pandemic, actually, because it was perfect for that at the time. And I fell in love with it. The Danganronpa series is, at its core, a mostly visual novel series. These games are visual novels more than they are anything else, about a bunch of high school students that get forced into a killing game by an evil teddy bear, basically. Think Hunger Games meets Saw if Jigsaw was like an evil Bugs Bunny type character, because the evil teddy bear, Monokuma. Yep, Monokuma, named for his black and white aesthetic, is the headmaster of these killing games across the entire franchise, basically. And he is a fourth wall breaking, physics defying cartoon character. One of those types of villains. One of my favorites, actually. He falls in line with characters like Bugs Bunny, the genie, the villain from Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I love those types. That is what the series is at its core. Each game is basically just a bunch of students trying to survive a killing game. But the overall lore of the entire franchise is actually about an all-out war between hope and despair, which is basically their versions of light and darkness.
Okay.
It's very anime, but it's also very Saw, and here's why. Because what happens in these games is somebody will kill somebody, and then when 3 people find the body, an announcement happens, and then an investigation starts. And during the investigation, you go around examining all the clues, talking to people, examining the body and stuff, and you get these different truth bullets that you can add to your, arsenal. And then what happens is a class trial where you have a basically courtroom argument, but it's parliament style, where they're all standing in a circle and debating back and forth about the clues that they found, trying to determine who performed the killing. Because how you get out of this killing game is you have to kill someone else and get away with it. So what happens is, if everybody successfully determines who murdered someone else, then that person will be punished. And the way that they get punished is in some kind of like Saw-esque execution style. For example, in the first game, one of the people to get punished is someone whose ultimate talent is that they're a really good baseball star. So their punishment is they get tied up to a post and pelted to death with 1,000 baseballs hitting them at high speed out of one of those baseball shooting cannons, with the fatal blow being to the face at the end. But it's not as violent as you might think it is, because the whole thing is done in this like really over-the-top, cartoony, almost comedic art style it's their own unique style that they call psychopop. Which is the absolute perfect name for it. Yeah, it's really fucked up because of how goofy it is. The goofiness makes it more disturbing in a way. It's like a weird juxtaposition. It's like how Little Nightmares is adorable yet horrifying at the same time. So there's the first game in the series has a bunch of students trapped in a high school basically going through this. And yeah, you go around during the class trials. This is where the actual gameplay comes in, where it's not a visual novel. During the debates, you have to use the clues that you have that are truth bullets to shoot holes in people's arguments. Like the words will be text on screen and a word will show up orange. And if you have a word in your arsenal that counters their argument, you shoot that word at theirs and object to their argument, and you're like, no, wait, I have evidence that what you're saying is bullshit. Here's what actually happened, It's not a choice-based thing. It's not like who dies depends on your choices. It's scripted. Like this, every time you play, the same people are going to die every time. If you fail the class trial, it's a game over. Because what happens is, if they guess the wrong person, then the person who did the killing actually goes free and everyone else gets executed. Which canonically doesn't happen. The class trials, they always guess the right one or the game doesn't end, Like that's basically, the class trials are the boss battle of the end of every chapter, so to speak.
Fair
And
enough.
speaking of boss battles, they do actually have them. Something called bullet time battle, where an enemy or one of the other classmates will start arguing with you one-on-one, and a little rhythm game pops up where you have to hit the buttons in the right time to gather targets, and you have to switch between like X, triangle, and square because you're trying to build up a combo, reload your ammo, and hit the targets, and each one's a different button, and you have to stay on the rhythm while you're doing it. So it's like very high tension stuff. But I absolutely love it. The game is like literally 80% reading dialogue, but it's like a really, really good fucked up story. So but that's what visual novels are. Visual novels are like almost 100% dialogue. It's like Persona, but without the RPG elements, you know.
Okay.
But it's like if they took out the RPG, it's like if they took Persona, took out the Final Fantasy stuff and replaced it with Ace Attorney stuff, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, and then added a saw filter over the whole thing.
Jeez.
Yeah, because it is really yeah, it's great. So there's the first game, Trigger Happy Havoc, and then and then there's an in between game, kind of their like chain of memories, if you will, called Ultra Despair Girls, where you play as the sister of the protagonist of the first game, but it actually takes place in a city-wide killing game where everyone's wearing these bracelets, where if they try to escape from the city, they'll blow up, and they're running around fighting off a bunch of Monokumas. It's like a slaughter. It's like basically Resident Evil if the zombies were replaced with Monokumas, is what it is. And that's how it plays too. It's like a survival horror game in third person. And you even have like a hacking gun that shoots the Monokumas. It's the only game in the entire series that plays like that, because then Danganronpa 2 goes right back to the visual novel thing. Another 16 students trapped in a killing game, but this time instead of a school, it's on an island. And then there's an anime called Danganronpa 3, The End of Hope's Peak. It has two arcs, the Despair arc and the Future arc. The Despair arc serves as a prequel to the entire series, shows you how this whole thing started and why. And the Future arc wraps up the story of this, basically this timeline. Wraps up everything. It gives you one last killing game in anime form this time, and then wraps a nice little bow on the whole series. And then they put out one more game called Danganronpa V3, but this one takes place in an alternate reality where Danganronpa is fiction like our reality, but they live such peaceful lives that they were so intrigued by this series that they made it into a reality TV show that people actually agree to be on, knowing that they're going to die, possibly, if they're on it, but they sign a contract, agree to be on it, and then willingly have their memories wiped and their personalities replaced with fake characters for the sake of the reality show, in which, since their memories have been wiped, it all feels real to them. And it is real, but they have no memory of agreeing to this because of their memories being wiped. Yeah, so it's like really fucked up. But that game ties a nice little bow on the entire series. The anime ties a bow on the Danganronpa main timeline, and then the final game they put out ties a nice bow on the series as a whole. And then there's a side game called Danganronpa Summer Camp S that's like a Mario Party style game that brings all the characters from all the games together. And it has like little RPG battles and stuff. It's okay, but it gets like really tedious and grindy after a while. So I don't recommend that one. But the rest of the series, fucking solid, basically. And the way that the people pull off some of these murders is some of the most convoluted, over-the-top anime shit I've ever heard in my life. It is so absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm talking about stuff like people being accomplice to other people being murders and then faking their own death so that they can go and kill someone else while people are investigating other stuff, and then they themselves being killed by the person who they were being an accomplice to, well, the whole time they set the whole thing up to frame someone else whose unconscious body they put in a robot costume. It's absolutely insane. There's a case in one of the games where one of the characters basically unalives themselves with poison and then sets the whole thing up to look like a locked room mystery. It insane, and the way that the clues you have to put together, the logic that they have to come to figure this out is like they definitely stretch credulity sometimes, I'll put it that way. um but it is so fun. Just know though, these are Japanese games that were made in the early 2010s, so there is some dated material in there. There is an assload of fan service that makes me super uncomfortable. I do not like it. And some, some body shaming and shit like that in there too. Like one of the fatter characters in one scene, when he starts to run away, the game literally goes thump 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 thump. So just stupid shit like that.
Oh no.
Yeah. And yeah, the game is like very up its own ass with the fourth wall breaking meta stuff too. So I think it's very tongue in cheek, like it knows what it is, and it wears that on its sleeve. Like it's not ashamed of what it is. So respect, I guess. But yeah, Danganronpa, visual novel murder mystery series with some. There is gameplay. It's not all reading. You actually walk around and hang out and talk to the other students and build relationships with them and shit too. And then during the class trials, there's mini games you have to play in order to win each argument and stuff like that. But the rest of the game is, yes, all dialogue. But but I love it. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most. If you thought the lore of Kingdom Hearts and Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil was convoluted, but you like that kind of thing, then you'll love how convoluted Danganronpa lore is too. That's all I can say. Okay. If you're into those three franchises, you'd probably be into Danganronpa.
All right.
Brooksy, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I recently, I want to say about a week ago, finally got around to watching the A24 film Heretic. Recently came out on HBO Max, whatever it's called these days. I candidly was very surprised at how much I loved this movie. I'm always a big fan of thrillers. I am always a big fan of A24 movies. Watching the trailers for it, I really was thinking to myself something felt a little off, or it wasn't going to fully capture me or anything like that, and I could not have been more wrong about that. Movie circulates really three main characters in it. It is the two actresses is Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, both playing as Mormon missionaries that are trying to convert a man, which was Hugh Grant, that ends up being a little bit more than what they originally bargained for. Movie starts out with just the two missionary women that are going around town trying to preach the word of the Church of Latter-day Saints. You see a couple different moments of people teasing them and really just trying to make these two characters as realistic and human, and not a odd, there's quite a bit of stigma around Mormonism and Latter-day Saints and everything else. Just trying to make them appear as just normal people and being teased for what they believe in. So you have that little bit of a sympathy card going in for them, and then they go to the very last house that was on their route. It started to rain a little bit, a little foreshadowing action, and then you're introduced to Hugh Grant, who invites them into the house, and that is where it turns relatively quickly very sideways for these two women and becomes a full-fledged cat and mouse game, which you could tell from the trailer itself that's where it was going. I was not personally expecting it to be as in-depth as it was. I will admit, watching it, I sat there and really thought to myself for probably the first half of the movie, is Hugh Grant really the villain in this movie because candidly, I agree with a lot of the argumentative points that he makes throughout this entire movie. Because essentially, what he does is, as he invites these women in, wants to challenge their belief and challenge their religion and really try to get to the bottom of what faith really is. And he does by the end of the movie fully gets to the bottom of what faith is really truly about. There are certain decisions naturally that I really don't agree with on it, but it was an oddly unique experience of feeling a lot of sympathy for the protagonists, I guess would be the best way to describe these two missionary women, but really empathizing with who the antagonist of this movie is and really kind of understanding where they're coming from. It was a really unique approach. There were a couple pacing moments, in my personal opinion, um, kind of towards the end of the second act going into the third act of the movie that kind of slowed things down and made things a little bit on the wonky side, but by and large, I thoroughly love this movie. I plan on watching it again. I have recommended it to just about anyone that I've had a chance to talk about it with over the past couple of weeks, which really just ends up being my wife who watched it with me, my my roommates, and my boss, and that's pretty much about it. And now now anyone that is listening to this podcast, if I had to put a rating on it, I personally would give it a 8.5. I wouldn't say that it's otherworldly. I wouldn't say that this is a, pinnacle of cinema or anything of that sort. But if you enjoy thrillers and if you enjoy suspense and if you enjoy religious discourse, this movie is absolutely for you. If you enjoy those three things, I could not recommend a better movie for you. And yeah, that's how I felt about Heretic.
All right, Nick, what did you have for us?
I have a movie called Last Breath.
Ooh,
Ooh.
I'm seeing a lot about this.
So I knew nothing about this movie going in. All I knew was that it had Woody Harrelson in it.
That's all you needed.
I knew what I saw on the poster at the movie theater.
That. So this movie, Woody Harrelson's role in this movie is a very crucial one. I would say he's a veteran in his field. This he's just starting out doing this, but the character who I should probably say what the movie is about first.
Yeah, I was gonna say veteran in what field?
So so this is a heart-pounding film that follows seasoned deep sea divers as they battle the raging elements to rescue their crewmate trapped hundreds of feet below the ocean's surface. Based on a true story, Last Breath is an electrifying story about teamwork, resilience, and a race against time to do the impossible.
And there are a lot of thriller movies about people getting lost in the ocean based on a true story, and people wonder why I never go out in the ocean.
So when I saw
nightmare.
the poster, I thought it was gonna be about the submersible that went all over the internet last year.
Oh, Ocean Gate.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be about Ocean Gate. No, it was not.
Billionaires with a Logitech.
Oh my god.
There's going into movies blind, and then there's going into movies blind.
Yeah, that. So, Woody Harrelson is a seasoned veteran in his field. The other I want to say experienced diver is the character's name is Yauza, Dave Yauza, and the uh, experienced diver but new to this field, Chris Lemons. Something happens when they go down uh, uh, hundreds of feet below the ocean surface, and the newbie is the, I would say, because this is based on a true story. No.
I think it's quite obvious from the poster who's the one that gets stuck and who goes
Yeah.
after him. Just, I mean, consider the budget of the cast, because Simu Liu is Dave, and that's Shang-Chi.
Yeah, and they do show it in the trailer who gets who gets trapped.
Yeah, it's the newbie.
That ain't no spoiler.
The newbie is the that ends up having to get rescued, and the life he would have left behind, I think, is the best way I can dance around it without spoiling anything as far as the film goes. The film, the life he would have left behind brought tears to my eyes. It was
Okay.
I think that's the best way I can dance around it without spoiling anything.
The newbie is played by Finn Cole, by the way,
Yes.
who is mostly known for being Michael Gray in Peaky Blinders.
Oh, okay.
It was a very good movie. This takes this movie takes, like, a lot of this movie is it takes place underwater. This movie was like an hour and a half.
On the shorter side these days.
Yeah, it very much so. Yes, we saw it at Flick's Brew House, and we ended up getting lunch while watching the movie.
I enjoy a good underwater thriller. I'm gonna have to see this.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one.
James Cameron's The Abyss still lives rent free in my head.
I have not seen that, and it's on my list. But if I had to give this a rating, 9 out of 10.
All right.
That seems to be the audience score. I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes right now. The audience score, that's the popcorn meter, 92%. The critic score, the tomato meter, 79%. Flip side, on IMDb, it's got a 6.7 out of 10. And go ahead.
I'm a sucker for a good Woody Harrelson film.
Heretic has a 7 out of 10 on IMDb as well.
Wow.
And a 91% critics score on Rotten Tomatoes, but a 76 audience.
What is the audience?
So, all right. So those Media Corner entries were the Danganronpa franchise, which is available on PS Vita and PS4, and a couple of them are also on Xbox. At least the main games, the three main ones, are on Xbox as well, anniversary editions. And the anime is on Crunchyroll. Heretic, is that available on streaming anywhere?
Oh, it is.
Yeah, where did you watch it?
I watched it on Max.
Okay, so Heretic is on Max, and Last Breath is currently in theaters at the moment.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Well, I say it's time for that topic.
All
Let's
right.
go.
Let's do it.
It's Saturday Night Live! Starring a piece of toast, two guys with handlebar mustaches, a man painted silver who makes robot noises, Garmanarnar, I'll get back to that one. A hole in the wall where the men can see it all. And returning for his 25th consecutive year, Bobby Moynihan!
Interesting fun fact, Moynihan and Piece of Toast hate each other. Apparently they've got some real creative differences.
All right, everybody, here we are at the topic of this episode, which in this episode, in honor of Saturday Night Live hitting its 50th year anniversary, we're going to be talking about SNL in a special two-parter. This is going to be 2 episodes. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the show itself, the cast, the skits, stuff like that, maybe some stuff from the documentaries. And then, not in the next episode, but the episode after that one, we'll be talking about the music that came from that show and the movies that came from that show as well. So that'll be in the second part. But for this part, we're going to be talking primarily about the show itself. And I'm going to start with this question. When I talk about Saturday Night Live, what pops out to you as either like your favorite or the most iconic era of the show in terms of like cast, memorable skits, stuff like that? Nick, we'll start with you.
Oh, dude, that's a loaded question.
Don't even think about it. Just first casting group that comes to
man.
mind. Like who's the?
I got mine. If you want me to go, I had to go first. I didn't do it immediately.
Go for it.
Okay.
Honestly, and I have always been such a huge fan of this person. First person that comes to mind every single time is Chris Farley. And the very first thing that ever pops in my head is eating government cheese down by the river.
In a van down by the river. Yep.
Yes.
That is what I think of. Like when I think of SNL, like I think of different generations, different decades, different casts. But when I think of like the first scene that pops in my head, it's Chris Farley eating government cheese down by the river in a van.
I think it would probably be safe to say, and I think we could all agree on, and probably the vast majority of people out there would agree on, that probably the objectively best era of SNL was the Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, David Spade, Dana Carvey era, all that. When we had Wayne's World and Church Lady and Adam Sandler doing his songs on Weekend Update, and Opera Man and Cajun Man,
So,
would you agree? I mean, is that the objectively best SNL era?
I would say so, yes. Fun fact about another SNL era. Will Ferrell and Christopher Walken.
Yes.
More specifically, the cowbell skit.
Oh, yeah.
Will Ferrell has openly said in interviews that Christopher Walken has said to Will Ferrell that you ruined he ruined his life with more. He's like, more cowbell.
Yes.
Funny.
So I have a lot of context from listening to the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast, where that literally the whole point is Andy Samberg, Yorma Taccone, and Akiva Shafir, the Lonely Island, who were also writers on the show at the time, and Andy was a cast member. And then Seth Meyers, who was the Weekend Update guy at the time and also a writer on the show. Together, they talk about the show, what it was like to be on it. They basically go episode by episode talking about the digital shorts that The Lonely Island did for each episode they talk about. They also talk about their albums and stuff, but we'll get into that in part 2. But they also they talk about like what different hosts were like, how different skits played, because they talk about the episodes themselves too. They say the episode that John Hamm hosted, when they did the Ross Tritt digital short, is one of the best episodes ever, that they think they've ever done. But they said that they've gone on record. They did this like surfer skit with Steve Martin in one episode when Will Forte and them was part of the cast, and they said Steve Martin has gone on record saying it's like one of the worst things he's ever done. So, yeah, so they talk about that. They talk about that. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the cowbell thing, because so there's a 4-part documentary for SNL on Peacock. And not to be confused with the other documentary that is focused entirely on music. There's like one 3-hour documentary all about the music of SNL that's hosted by Questlove. But then there's another 4-part documentary where each episode focuses on a different thing. The first episode is about their audition tapes. Second episode is about the writing staff. Third episode, I actually don't remember. Oh, the SNL's weird era, they call it, when like Robert Downey Jr. was one of the cast members. And then the fourth episode is literally all about that damn cowbell sketch. Like the entire fourth episode of the documentary is entirely dedicated to that skit. And it is, yeah, dude. The audition tapes in the first episode they show you for some of these cast members, Lorne Michaels clearly sees potential in people, like, because some of those audition tapes are some of the cringiest things I've ever seen from some of the funniest people I've ever seen. Like, they definitely came into their own later, because those audition tapes, compared to how they are now, are rough. Some of them are really rough. And, okay. You know, but also they know it too, because during the first episode of the documentary, they made people like Andy and Bobby and them sit there and watch their own audition tapes, and they're like, oh God, please don't make me watch this, you know? It's like, yes. And yeah, it was great. Like, Bobby's audition tape was really bad, but he made it, you know. And he was one of the funniest characters on the show during that era. Honestly, Drunk Uncle is hilarious. Uncle. You know.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I would say one of my favorite Chris Farley Adam Sandler bits was when they played the old couple. Like, Adam Sandler was the old grumpy husband with the glasses holding the newspaper, and Chris Farley was the wife. And he would always get Adam to break character and laughter in those skits. If anyone could make Adam laugh, it was Chris Farley, 100%. Yeah. So speaking of which, though, you mentioned Will Ferrell. So, two of the people that were cast members during Will Ferrell's time were Rachel Dratch and Jimmy Fallon. And Rachel and Will Ferrell would, like, scheme with each other to get Jimmy to break character and laugh as much as possible. Will said that he found it funny to make Jimmy laugh, so he would go out of his way to try and make him laugh as much as possible. And that's part of the reason why Jimmy Fallon is, like, you go back and watch the seasons he was in, that man breaks and laughs in almost every single skit he's in. That's what he became known for, quite frankly. Especially those hot tub skits. But how could you not, when Will Ferrell is, like, right there in your face doing his Will Ferrellisms? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's hard. I want to say some of my favorite examples of people breaking character, a more recent one, Ryan Gosling hosted an episode, and they did a Beavis and Butthead skit.
Yes.
Where Kenan Thompson is sitting there talking to an interviewer played by Heidi Gardner about AI, and he's distracted because the guy sitting behind her looks like Butthead from Beavis and Butthead, and it's like it's just Mikey Day dressed up like Butthead, and then And then they go sit him next to Ryan Gosling, who's dressed up like Beavis, and they both look at each other, and they both just start laughing. They just lose it. Heidi Gardner, the first time she turned around and looked at Mikey Day, absolutely lost her shit. I think it was the first time she saw him in costume, because I don't think they wore costumes for rehearsal. So they got a real genuine reaction live.
That's the best way to do it.
That, and whenever Kate McKinnon does her alien abduction skit, whoever's with her always ends up breaking. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter how good they are. They always end up breaking, especially Ryan Gosling. When they did the 50th anniversary special, they had Pedro Pascal and Woody Harrelson there for that, and they both cracked up. They both started losing it. I've been meaning to ask you, Nick, what'd you think of that 50th anniversary special overall, by the way?
God. It was fantastic. I loved every minute of it.
It was
And
very well
gone
done.
without the lengthy like intermissions.
Intermission. Oh, you mean the commercials?
Yeah.
You mean you didn't watch it live though. You watched it after the fact.
Caught some of it live.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then you got real-time commercials, which we're not used to anymore because of, streaming. We're spoiled by streaming. Instead of like the 1-minute ad, you got like an actual line of commercials. I'm assuming that's what you mean by intermission.
No, the where they would just show pictures of the SNL set, and the programming will continue after.
Oh, right. Okay, so you were watching it on the Peacock app. What that is the part where if you were like watching it on like cable TV live, there would be like a local commercial playing there.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's what that is. I get what you mean now. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I thought one of my favorite parts was definitely when they were doing the John Mulaney musical bit, and David Spade leaves, and Mulaney's like, "Where did Spade go?" And Pete's like, "Oh, he sat back down." And the camera goes to David Spade, and he's like out of breath, and he's like, "I got a feel for it. I'm good."
They've been really nailing it on the head with all the political sketches that they've been doing.
Yeah, but they've always been really good at that. Will Ferrell always played a really good George W. Bush when he was on the show. That was like his. He was really good at that. That was his thing.
He was.
Jay Farrow did a fucking solid Barack Obama.
Yeah, he did.
But Jay Farrow was always really good at all kinds of impressions. His Will Smith and Denzel Washington are like, you close your eyes, you can't tell the difference. They're impeccable impressions. Absolutely, absolutely on point. Like, people often do impressions on the show that don't really land. They're just the closest thing they have. But sometimes you get this one person who absolutely just fucking knocks it out of the park with their impressions. And Jay Farrow was always really good at that. Will Ferrell was always really good at impressions. Andy Samberg, they did something different with him. They made him do impressions because he wasn't good at them. And that was the joke.
Okay.
That's just part of Andy's whole, like awkward, dorky humor. And Andy Samberg is almost like the spiritual successor to Norm Macdonald, but with more geeky, but like a geeky version. Because Andy's style of humor is anti-humor, if that makes any sense. Do you remember when they did the Comedy Central roast of James Franco, and all of his jokes were basically just backhanded compliments? It's basically that, like when he told the joke about being at a party at Jonah Hill's house, and he overstayed his welcome, and Jonah politely asked him to leave, and he's like, "You're a passive-aggressive sweetheart, Jonah," but he says it aggressively. He was doing a Norm Macdonald, there. Which, another rest in peace, by the way, Norm Macdonald, another great SNL cast member from the olden days. He was a Weekend Update host and a comedy legend.
Yeah, he was.
He also went on He went on to do all kinds of stuff. He was good friends with Seth MacFarlane, and he voiced the pigeon on that stupid Mike Tyson show on Adult Swim.
He was also the voice of the dog in all of the Dr. Dolittle movies with
Oh, you're right. He was.
Eddie Murphy.
And he voiced the blob alien creature in Seth MacFarlane's Star Trek fanfiction show, The Orville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All solid stuff there. Brooksy, let me ask you, because this is the era of SNL where I actually started like really watching and keeping up with it. Are you familiar at all with the Andy Samberg, Jason Sudeikis, Kristen Wiig,
yes,
Fred Armisen
Amy,
era?
Amy Poehler and all of that. Yes, I did watch.
Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. Amy and Tina were already gone by the time I started in, but the rest of them were still there. Like,
okay, cool.
Amy had like just left though, but I saw Jason leave. I saw Kristen leave as I was watching. Like they made a big deal out of it when they left. Like they did whole skits dedicated to him.
But yes, I did watch during that time. I one of my close friends, because that was around like 2008, 2009, sometime around there. Am I correct on that?
I think so. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was still living in Rockford at the time with Stephanie. Nick,
Mhm.
you may remember a lot of us used to get together on Saturday night and watch the show live as it aired.
Hell yeah, we did.
And like
Yeah.
every time a Lonely Island song came on, it was like fucking Christmas. We were all like, "Yes, they did one this time," you know.
Yeah, and so that's what I was gonna say is one of my close friends from high school. We played football together, all of that fun stuff, and he was a huge SNL person, and yeah, he would invite me over to his house on Saturday nights to be able to watch it with him, and I mean, I I unashamedly know every word off of every single track off of the Lonely Island album because of my friend, because of how much he loved it, played it religiously in his car, and I mean,
which one? There's like 4 of them now.
It was the first one and the one with the turtleneck sweaters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was the 3rd album, I think.
Was it the 3rd album? Was it really?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah, there was Incredibad, Turtleneck and Chain. There was the Popstar album, and then there was another one in between Incredibad and the Whack album, I think.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, no, so I'm thinking of Incredibad is what I was thinking of.
Incredibad's the very first one they ever did. That's the one with Boombox and Ross
Jizz in My Pants,
Jizz in My Pants, Ross Trent. The song that started them off on SNL really was "Lazy Sunday" with Chris Parnell. That was the one. And that's also on that album.
I will say though, I did listen to quite a bit of Turtleneck and Chain as well, just because of how much I had listened to the first album. I think that's why I was thinking of the Turtleneck album. I fell in love with specifically Lonely Island, and it's what inspired me to love just Andy Samberg in general and really kind of follow anything he did. He's the reason why I watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Hell yeah. 9-9.
Yeah, and I know we'll talk about it in the part 2 and all of that, but still to this day, one of my favorite comedy movies is Hot Rod.
Yep.
And
Popstar is great too.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with that era. I will say the things that I do remember the most from that era was anything Lonely Island related. Anytime they ever released a brand new music video, I mean, it was like you said, it was like Christmas. When I'm on a Boat came out, I cannot tell you how many times we, like, with our full chest, just belted that song out in his truck driving around all throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolute. Yeah, I would say that era is probably my second favorite era that I personally tuned into.
So there is I want to say there are 2 skits, and yeah, because we will definitely dig heavily into the Lonely Island in the part 2 of this when we talk about music. But I will say They were responsible for almost all the digital shorts in that era, not just the ones that were their songs. You may remember Laser Cats. Was a bit that Andy Samberg did with Bill Hader, where the joke of the bit was that they were pitching the bit to Lorne Michaels, and they would play him a tape of it, and it's just like them running around the hallways pretending to shoot each other with stuffed cats, and it's like so stupid, and he absolutely hates it, but it's like you're still seeing the skit within the skit, you know, like they still got it on air, so and they did this like 3 or 4 fucking times, and each time the story gets more wild and convoluted with it. But something I can talk about that is music related, because it's a skit and not like a full thing, and not like one of their musical skits, but they did this twice. Once when Bruno Mars hosted, and once when Ariana Grande hosted. But they did this Pandora radio skit where...
I remember this.
Yeah, where the power went out, and they were like, oh no, we gotta get these songs playing at these and then like the intern, played by the singer hosting the show, is like, they're like, I've heard them have a good singing voice. Here, you get over here and you do the songs. So they have Bruno Mars do all of these impressions of other singers doing these songs, like he did like Michael Jackson and Green Day, and he fucking nailed it. Like every last one of them, spot on. And then they turned around and did the same thing later with Ariana Grande, and she absolutely nailed it too. And I knew she would, because she does this game with Jimmy Fallon every time she's on his show, and absolutely nails it every time. But, you know, she would do, like, Britney Spears and Mariah Carey, and, yeah.
Her Britney Spears is pretty good.
Yeah, she sounds fucking exactly like them. So, those skits, I think, were some of the best I've ever seen. Speaking of the Kristen, Bill, Fred era, the Californians is probably one of the most memorable skits from that era, because they would always make each other laugh. Bill cracked up a lot in that skit.
Yeah, he did.
He did. How do you feel about that skit as a Californian yourself, Brooksy? Yeah, I know you know the one I'm talking about.
I do.
The soap opera with the blonde hair, and you got to take the 405 to the 303. Stuart, what are you doing here? I love it.
First of all, the 405 is an absolute nightmare of a freeway. I avoid LA like the plague, but if I ever have to, driving on because where I live in San Diego, the main freeway we have is the 5, and it turns into the 405 once you get into LA. It's like, okay, it's officially a lawless wasteland out here. But the Californian sketch, it is it's not wrong. It's not wrong. I would say it's definitely more of the I would say it's more of like the Malibu vibe more than anything else. Because it's the California. I mean, overall, we have our own aesthetic and everything else. There's different pockets. But the Californians like that. It's Malibu. It's Malibu. It's that more upper class parts of LA. Because when I first moved here, I was like, everyone here in San Diego is so normal and cool. Why does everyone razz so much on California? And then I went to Malibu, and I was like, oh, okay. Equally West Hollywood. When I think of people talking about how much they hate Californians and that they're vegan this and this, all of that nonsense, I'm like, I don't really see it. Like, I just get like carne asada fries and California burritos. It's awesome. No, I worked for a couple weeks in West Hollywood for an old restaurant I used to manage, and it is a straight scene out of the Californian sketch.
Oh, okay.
That's fantastic.
I gotta give you a funny behind-the-scenes story from the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast that Andy told from the 50th special. So there's a singer named Robin that they did a song with on one of their albums. I think she was there I think it was Go Kindergarten that she did with them. Okay. I'm not 100% sure which one, but anyways, though, I think she's actually done a couple with them. But there was So Andy ran into Beck Bennett, former cast member, and the singer Beck at the SNL 50th, and he was like, "Oh, dude, this is my only opportunity. He's like, the stars have aligned. I have both the Becks. I'm gonna take a picture of the Becks together. You know the way Andy is." And he and Robin saw him while he was trying to take the picture of them together, and she came up and she tried to get his attention, and he said jokingly, in his Andy way, he was like, "Robin, not now. I'm trying to get a picture of the Becks," and she was like, "Oh, okay," and then walked away, and he was like, "No, wait, hold on," and it was too late. She was gone. And he fantastic. Said, he's like, "I felt so bad because I think she thinks that I actually stiffed her and I didn't mean to. I was just being funny." And he's like, "Robin, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry." Oh, God. And I was like, it's so comforting to know that celebrities have those moments too. You know what I mean? They're people right? Just like us. But yeah, yeah.
So I'd be amiss if we didn't talk about the 40th anniversary special that they did.
Yeah, that was a while back.
Yeah, it was about
10
a decade
10
ago.
years.
10 years ago.
Exactly.
We
did watch that. We did watch that as a group in Rockford.
Yes, we did. My favorite sketch from that was when Mike Myers and Dana Carvey reunited for Wayne's World, and they had an itemized list of things, and Sit Down Kanye was one of them.
Yes. Yes. They knew ahead of time. They knew ahead of time. Yeah. You notice they didn't let Kanye into the audience in this one for good reason.
No, they sure didn't.
Yeah, thank God. But there was a lot of great people in that audience for sure.
Yeah, there was. I thought it was actually really
Keith Richards, man, Jack Sparrow's dad was in this.
Right. I was glad to see Jelly Roll in the crowd.
Hell yeah. Well, he was there for the musical special, the 50th anniversary musical thing, which we will talk about in the part 2.
I need to watch that before we do part 2.
Because that happened 2 nights beforehand. So
how'd it happen literally the night before?
No, the 50th special was on a Sunday night and the musical special was on a Friday night. They did rehearsals on Saturday.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, it's Saturday Night Live, but they did the special on a Sunday night because they needed a break in between the two things. So
makes sense.
Because it was a fucking 3-hour concert, and it had like every musical person that's ever existed there, and then a million celebrities in the audience. So yeah, but yeah, we'll talk about that. One of my more favorite skits in recent years is the skit that Pedro Pascal does with Marcelo Hernandez, where he plays an overprotective Latina mother. He's so perfect at it. It's absolutely hilarious. They've done it twice, and I wish they would do it again. Like, it was a missed. I would have rather they had done that rather than a part 3 to Domingo during the 50th. It doesn't make sense to do. It doesn't make sense to do the third part of a ongoing like a trilogy of skits during something that people who haven't been watching the recent season are going to tune in for because it's a big special thing. Do your standalone skits here, because part 3 of Domingo doesn't make sense if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2. Honestly, it's like a whole storyline there. It started with a bachelor party, then it was a baby shower, and then a honeymoon. There's a whole narrative.
I know I said this on a previous episode, but I know Bill Hader opted not to be there, but they missed a huge opportunity to have Stefan plan the after party for the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, So that is, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to say one of the most memorable things from the era of SNL that I started on was Bill Hader's Stefan character. And
yes.
We all know the story behind it now. John Mulaney was a writer on the show when Bill Hader was on there. And what he would do what he would do is, like, so they would go through normal rehearsal with the properly written script, but then on the night of airing, John Mulaney would switch out the cue cards to trip up Bill Hader so that he didn't actually know what he was going to say. Like, he would know the whole thing up until the last line, and then the last line would usually be some kind of curveball. So when he says it for the first time, he would do it on purpose to make him laugh and break character. So
he was notorious for breaking character.
And with Stefan, so we have John Mulaney trolling Bill Hader with the cue cards to thank for all those Stefan breaks. Why he's one of the most memorable characters in SNL history, quite frankly.
Yes.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy was an SNL cast member a long time ago. Did you know that?
Yes, he was.
And he did one of the funniest skits that he did, and oh god, it was racist as hell, but it's a product of its time, was a black version of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Oh no.
It was fucking hilarious. But like, I'm pretty sure he wrote the skit himself, you know.
Fair enough.
Chris Rock was also a cast member for a while, I think.
Yeah, he was. Around the same time Adam Sandler was, I think.
Tracy Morgan.
Yep.
Marlon Wayans was a cast member for a while, and they talk about this in the documentary. He's one of the few people, like, he got fired, like, live. He got fired on the show. Because,
oh, shit, really?
Yeah. Now, Marlon Wayans, for those who don't know, he's the funny black guy from the first two Scary Movie movies. He was, like, the one where in the second one that he's eating the popcorn out of his head. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was a cast member for a while, and I think he was basically pissed off because they wouldn't do a skit that he wrote, and out of spite, they were doing a skit where they were supposed to be cops, and he came out he came out like overplaying his cop as like homoerotic as humanly possible and trying to like purposely ruin the skit out of spite, and it pissed off Lorne Michaels so much that he took him aside after the skit was over and told him he was fired right then and there. Jeez. First time that it ever happened. Yeah, they talk about it in the documentary, which, by the way, Marlon Wayans, that man, you can't even recognize him anymore. He's gotten so old.
Speaking of, they're doing a sixth Scary Movie.
Are they really? Huh?
Yeah, they're getting back together, and they also talked. Heard Marlon Wayans talking about in an interview. He said, "Well, people are wondering when we're gonna do the sequel for White Girls. Well, let's finish Scary Movie 6, and then we'll circle back to White Chicks."
There's no point without what's her name, Anna Faris. Yeah, because she was basically what carried those first four movies. The fifth one was terrible. So but all right. Speaking of which, they said on the Seth and Lonely Island podcast that Anna Faris was one of like the best hosts they ever had. She was just down to do whatever. Honestly,
fair enough.
So I learned from them talking and the documentary that their writing process, like, Sunday is basically their only day off. The entire rest of the week, it's like Monday through Wednesday, we're writing scripts, and then we're meeting with the host, and then we're doing a table read of the different scripts of the skits to see what gets a laugh and what doesn't, and then there's a meeting where all the different skits are posted up on a pin board, and everyone has to decide what's going into the show and what's getting cut, and like they're like, sometimes when you worked really hard on a skit and then it ends up getting cut and they don't go, it can be really disheartening. They say. So, and sometimes it's up to the host too. Sometimes the host will be like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not comfortable doing a skit like that or something like that. So they have to cut it, for those reasons too. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then Friday night is rehearsals where they actually do a taped rehearsal. So they basically do a version of the show, and it is in front of an audience. So if you get tickets to SNL, there's a chance that you might actually be going to the Friday night taped rehearsal instead of the Saturday Night Live show. And it's still the same show, basically.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Because they do have an audience for the taped rehearsals on Friday nights, and that's where if a skit gets cut for time, like if a host monologue went too long or something, and they had to cut a planned skit out for time on the live show, those are where the taped rehearsals come in handy, because they'll put the taped rehearsal version up on YouTube, and it'll be uploaded as a cut for time skit that you can watch there.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so that's where those come in. And then of course the show that airs on Saturday night is the one that we actually see on streaming services and get to see live. With that audience there. But yes, there was a whole day of rehearsals before that and an entire week of writing. And then after the show, they have an after party, and then Sunday they rest. It's like their only day off, and then Monday it's right back to it, right back to the writing, and the whole shit repeats all over again.
Exhausting.
Oh, they said it's one of the most mentally taxing, most stressful jobs they've ever had in their lives, quite frankly. And it's not just the writers, but the cast members too, because half of the cast members are also writers. Some of them, and they're involved in the writing process, because if they're in the skit, then the writer has to talk to them about it. Like, hey, I'm going to have you do this. This is what I'm picturing. They all have to be on the same page, for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it is a very involved process, So anyone who ever thought, man, it would be fun to be an SNL cast member? No, it would not. It would be very stressful. You'd have absolutely no free time, no personal life, and you'd likely be traveling a lot if you got famous for other things. Like they said on the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast, when they went to go do Hot Rod, they actually had to cut a deal with Lorne. Like, they had to, get so many digital shorts pumped out, and then he would let them leave for the summer to go do their movie and then come back. It was they had to cut a deal with their boss to get that time to go do that. So it's always it's a cutthroat thing, because in a way you're also in competition with the other writers to make sure that your skit is the one that gets on air too.
Oh, absolutely.
What were you gonna say?
All of the Wicked related sketches that they've been doing since Bowen Yang was in the film have been hilarious. Fun fact, Ariana Grande actually phoned Lorne Michaels to ask if she could get Bowen Yang for a specific role for Wicked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, fun fact, for the first couple seasons of SNL, it was actually a lot of the same cast for a while. They didn't start doing the repeat cast, or they didn't start doing, new cast members, shuffling them out for a while. But, and that makes sense. Once they get a cast, they tend to stick for a few seasons before they shuffle people around. But,
yeah.
The show actually got canceled at one point, and it was around season 10, or season 11, but they had a time that they called the Weird Year, which the third episode of the documentary is about, where this was when, I want to say, Robert Downey Jr. was on the cast and a few other people, and it is considered historically SNL's worst year ever. A lot of the skits didn't land. They weren't at the top of their game. But this season almost killed the show. But then they came back strong, and this is when they hired the cast members that would become known as the first golden era group, when they came back strong with some of the more well-known faces these days after that.
Right.
So it booted them back into the thing. I don't remember all the specific details. I recommend just watching the documentary on that one, because it's a very intriguing story, quite honestly, especially hearing it from the horse's mouth for a lot of them. But yeah, I've been a big fan of a lot of their different stuff. You know, when COVID hit and they were all stuck at home, they went out of their way to make sure we still got SNL. They just all recorded their own individual skits at home and basically did like a weird montage show instead of their usual thing. It was so different. It was like watching a bunch of internet videos back to back of people doing skits instead of what you're normally used to. But
That's hilarious.
it did bring us 3 rap songs from Pete Davidson that I actually really liked. So there's that.
Fair enough.
You know, he was trying to do the Lonely Island thing. But one of those songs actually has Adam Sandler doing a verse in it too. Pete Davidson did a song called Stuck in the House that was about being stuck in the house during COVID, and then Adam Sandler came in during the third verse and did a bit, you know? And like his last line in the song is, "I'm so fucking bored, I'm doing songs with Pete." Yeah. It was great. Speaking of Adam Sandler songs, I teared up a little bit with the song he did during the 50th thing, because even though it was supposed to be funny, when he got to Chris Farley, you could tell he was getting choked up a bit. You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got something to say about one of the movies that they did in part 2.
Oh yeah. There's a lot, and we will definitely get to those. Let me ask you guys, current cast, like right now, the current cast of the show, assuming you're familiar with them, who's your current favorite cast member?
Bo and Yang.
Ooh.
I had a feeling you might say that. It's a hard choice for me. There's a lot of great ones. Sarah Sherman stands out among the female cast members for sure.
She's hilarious.
Well, of course she is. She's the cliche funny Jewish comedian character, you know? Like they all play a role that they kind of go into. Like Bo and Yang leans very heavily into the gay and Asian stuff for some of his bits.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Marcelo Hernandez too. I think he's pretty fucking funny.
He is.
He plays his roles. Mikey Day's been on there for a good while. Kenan Thompson's always great, but that's because he's always smiling. He can never not smile.
Keenan's been on there the long.
Yeah, it's his show now, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ashley Padilla's really coming into her own as far as the newer cast members, like the featured players this season. I like Jane Wickline, but she's absurdist humor, which is a very specific taste. She's like Bob's Burgers humor, which is not for everyone.
Yeah. Right.
But I like it. Also, I think she might actually be a they. I think Jane Wickline is non-binary, just like Molly Carney was before they left.
Mm.
Molly Carney was basically Aidy Bryant's replacement for a minute. Molly Carney had Melissa McCarthy vibes.
Yeah, she did.
So Kate McKinnon was basically Kristen Wiig's replacement. Those two were very similar.
Yes, they were.
I loved Kate McKinnon. I'm actually trying to think of who's all on the show now. Heidi Gardner, and Chloe Fineman. I like both of them too. They've been on for a few years now. Like they've come into their own, I think. But yeah, are you familiar?
Jost and Michael Che.
Yeah, those two. Well, they are the Weekend Update anchors. Yeah, they are the Weekend Update anchors and both writers for the show. So, current
the way
cast.
They go back and forth on the Weekend Update is hilarious.
Current cast is Michael Che, Mikey Day, Andrew Dismukes, Chloe Fineman, Heidi Gardner, Marcelo Hernandez, James Austin Johnson. He's their current Trump impression.
Okay.
Colin Jost, Michael Longfellow, Ego Nodum, Ashley Padilla, Sarah Sherman, Kenan Thompson, Emil Wakim, Devin Walker, Jane Wickline, and Bowen Yang.
Okay.
So yeah, are you familiar with those folks, Brooksy?
I kind of am. I want to say the last time I was actively watching SNL was during the time that Pete Davidson was on SNL.
Ooh, so
So
not that long ago
no,
though.
so not that long ago, I don't know why I dropped it off. I don't know why I pick up and drop off on SNL as many times as I have. Um,
Well, to be
but
fair, the first season after he left wasn't a very good season, but this one has been.
okay.
The current one has been pretty good for the most part. There's some ups, there's some downs, more ups than downs. The Ariana Grande episode was hilarious. Lady Gaga hosted last episode, and she absolutely knocked it out of the fucking park.
Yeah,
Not to mention the week before.
yeah.
What was the week before? I can't.
Shane Gillis.
Oh, okay. So the first time Shane Gillis hosted was actually hilarious. One of the funniest
it was.
episodes I've ever seen. Like, especially like the one where like they're the only white family in a black church. That shit was great. But this most recent episode he hosted, he was off. He like bombed the monologue and then it threw him off for the rest of the episode.
Yeah,
Like,
it did. It was
like-
horrendous.
The funniest bit the entire time was probably the "Please Don't Destroy" digital short, which, by the way, that's what I was going to say. "Please Don't Destroy," they're basically, from a writing perspective, the replacement for Lonely Island right now. They don't do music. They have done a couple of songs when they have like a singer on as a joke songs, but not as good. But they do all the digital skits now.
Okay.
Okay.
The three nerdy, one of them is the son of Steve Higgins. His name is John Higgins. He's Steve Higgins' son, and Steve Higgins, which I think is that Jimmy Fallon's sidekick. He was a writer on SNL as well. So one of them is his son, and it was actually is kind of funny. There was an episode either this season or last season where Dakota Johnson hosted from 50 Shades of Grey, and Madam Web, was she in that too? I think
He was
Yeah.
Madam
So-
Web, yes.
Okay, so Dakota Johnson hosted, and they did a bit where her and Please Don't Destroy start roasting each other. Like they just make fun of each other back and forth, and she was like, I can't remember what it was that they said to her that got it started, and she was like, "Oh yeah, no, it's an honor. I've always wanted to meet the Lonely Island." And then from there they're like, "Oh, so we're doing that, are we?" And then they just start going back and forth, calling each other nepo babies and shit. It's great. Like, they're roasting her, she's roasting them, and all the jokes are like on point. I love a good roast. The roasts are fun. So that was a fun skit. So Please Don't Destroy, and we'll talk about it more in part 2, but they even went on to have their own movie on Peacock, which we've done a Media Corner entry of on this show
Yes.
before. But yes, those three dorks are great. I wasn't sure what I thought of them at first, but they've really come into their own on the show, and they don't overuse them. They use them just enough. They used to do more animated skits back in the day, back when they had the writers that did those, like the one with the gay superheroes and stuff. But they finally brought back animated skits in a recent episode that Timothy Chalamet hosted, and it's
Oh
one
my
of the
God, yes.
funniest fucking thing. This skit would be right at home on Adult Swim with the
Yeah, it
crude
would.
animation and the jokes, but it's literally a skit about God being a frat boy douchebag about how to create things, and the angels like bringing stuff up. And like the funny
The
faces
angels
they
are
make.
like the HR department.
Yes, exactly. And God is like a fucking unhinged toddler. It's great. And he's voiced by Timothy Chalamet in the skit, which makes it even better.
Yes.
And it's just so like, because the angels are sitting there like, all right, like trying to figure out the anatomy of a human, and he just comes in and erases all of it and starts giving them his idea for a volcano. And he's like, all right, guys, I was thinking about this. He's like, what if big ass mountain full of lava and it just goes like poof and shit and there's fire everywhere? Like it's just, it is absolutely, he's like a total
Unhinged.
dude bro. Yeah.
That entire episode was unhinged.
Yes, Timothy Chalamet had one of the most unhinged episodes in SNL history. It was wild, and it was in this season. So yeah, there's been some ups and downs this season, but mostly ups. The Steve Martin episode for Christmas that they did back in December. No, not Steve Martin. Martin Short. Martin Short.
Yeah.
Where they
That was-
added him to the Five Timers Club. By the way, we got to talk about that. Can't forget about that. This is anybody who's hosted the show 5 times or more gets a special jacket, and they're a member of the Five Timers Club. And usually, whenever someone joins, former Five Timers Club members come in and do a bit with them. And they did that for Martin Short. It was his Five Timers Club time, and they brought in Paul Rudd, Alec Baldwin, Steve Martin, Emma Stone, Melissa McCarthy, Kristen
Scarlett
Wiig,
Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson. Yeah, it was great. One of the best episodes of the whole
Colin
season.
Jost tried following her in, and she said no.
Yes. Yeah, I love that too. I love, for those that don't know, Colin Jost from Weekend Update on SNL is actually married to Scarlett Johansson. And they make jokes about it all the time on the show. In fact,
So funny.
in the recent episode, I think on the Weekend Update, I think it was maybe a Sarah character or somebody that was next to Colin made a joke about, they're like, can you imagine your wife being more successful than you and making more money than you or something like that? And they're like making fun of Colin. I can't remember what it was though, who the character was supposed to be now. Because it was definitely some old-timey guy. I think it might have been Mikey Day. I think it might have been Mikey Day as like some old fancy British guy. I have to go back and watch it again now. Because I can't remember what the context for it was. But yeah, some of my favorite Weekend Update characters besides Stefan and Drunk Uncle, Cecily Strong's drunk girl you wish you didn't start a conversation with at a party.
Yes.
Was always, Cecily was great when she was on the show.
Andy Samberg's Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
That's high praise.
Yeah, that's high praise. He's like, I'm off to my next adventure. I'm gonna have a 3-way with the Declaration of Independence. I also love when he did Mark Wahlberg talking to animals. That was another great Andy Samberg skit.
Okay, yeah.
I will say, if there's actually any impression I think Andy got nailed down, it actually is Mark Wahlberg. I think he did a good Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Also, Michael Keaton hosted SNL recently, and Andy Samberg was on there, and he did a spot-on Beetlejuice impression. So now we know Andy Samberg can do a really good Beetlejuice, too. Like 100%. Because this season, Andy had been on the show a lot for the first half before the election. Same for Maya Rudolph to play Kamala and Doug. And then after the election, they stopped being on there. But Andy still made cameos here and there, and he's been basically season 50 of SNL has brought back The Lonely Island. They've released at least 3 singles now since the show has been back. Sushi Glory Hole, and then whatever the one he did with Charlie XCX about being the nosy white neighbor that calls the cops on everyone.
Yes.
And then the song they did for SNL 50, where the song about all the cast members having anxiety, was, so we've gotten 3 new Lonely Island songs out of this season of SNL so far. So that's pretty cool too. So season 50 has been, like, the amount of celebrity cameos this season, not just in the 50th special, but the entire season, is ridiculous. Like, they've really gone all out this season, and we're not done yet. They've already announced the next 3 episodes. March 29th, the host is Mikey Madsen, and for those who don't know, she's the girl from Anora.
Okay.
And the musical guest is Morgan Wallen. April 5th, the host is Jack Black, and the musical guests are Elton John and Brandi Carlile together.
I'm excited for that one.
And then April 12th is John Hamm as the host with Lizzo as the musical guest. Those sound like good episodes. I'm always excited when someone who's never hosted before hosts, because I want to see how they do. So, like, I think one of the guys from Top Gun Maverick, I think Miles Teller, they had him host earlier this season, and it's the first. No, not him. The guy from Gladiator 2, like the main guy from Gladiator 2. I forgot his name. Paul something. He hosted this season, and he absolutely nailed it. First time ever hosting, and he fucking knocked it out of the park. Boom. You know? He's not the first one either. Drake, the musical artist, hosted one time, like many years ago, and he knocked it out of the park too. And he also did a spot-on Cat Williams impression. It was fucking hilarious.
I was gonna say, didn't Seth MacFarlane host once?
Yep, he's hosted once and only once, and he also, no surprise, absolutely knocked it out of the park. I remember that episode distinctly because that was the one where he did the drill sergeant skit, and Bill Hader had the puppet
Yes.
he was talking to him with. Yes, that one was great. And also on the Weekend Update, Seth MacFarlane did a Michael Phelps impression. So
yes,
yeah, that was I remember that one. That one was great. Also, Bowen Yang, his dreams came true when he got to dance with Lady Gaga in the latest episode.
Oh, absolutely they were.
Yeah. I think they kind of broke the fourth wall there when he said he was bi. Like, I don't think that was part of the skit. Like, I think that was him, being self-aware with the, with the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Which that was fun. Yeah, some people they always get hosts back that do a great job. Justin Timberlake was always one of their funniest hosts too.
Oh my gosh.
One of the first hosts I ever saw when I first started watching the show was him, and him doing his, like, bring it on down to Homelessville skit where he's, like, the dancing cup of soup outside. He's trying to get, like, charity outside the soup kitchen, charity money, and it was, and he was doing, like, these song parodies like, soup, there it is, and stupid shit like that. Yeah, that was also the first time I learned about The Lonely Island, because that's when I saw Dick in a Box. So, and then, yeah, I was hooked on the show from there, then learned about its history and stuff. I still haven't gone back, like, I probably never will go back and watch the whole thing from the beginning, because that's just asking too much, but I have gone back and watched classic episodes. For example, did you know Betty White hosted an episode of SNL a long time ago?
No.
Oh, cool.
She did. Like, it was like in the 32nd season or something like that. I'll have to find it exactly. But that one is definitely one worth watching. One last thing I'd like to ask you guys. If you could pick someone who has never hosted SNL before, like for sure they've never hosted, your dream host, if they would be willing to do it, who would it be?
Ooh.
For a while, mine was Craig Ferguson until he retired. I thought he would have been great.
Gabriel Iglesias.
That's a good choice. I don't think he's ever hosted, and he would be perfect.
That would be really good.
Given his background and where he got his start on all that, I think he'd fit in perfect.
I'm gonna say Johnny Depp.
Ooh.
He's never hosted, and he probably never will because he's too shy. He doesn't like doing this kind of like stuff, like interviews and talk shows and shit like that, and live stuff. He's very, very shy.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But I would still love to see it.
Right.
What about you, Lucy?
Honestly, I apologize if this person has done an SNL episode before, just because I'm not as in depth and in tune as you two are. I would love to see Henry Cavill come out and do an SNL episode.
I don't think he has, to be honest with you.
Yes. Okay. I'm sitting here. I'm like, I don't know who hasn't done an episode before. I gotta take a stab in the dark on this one.
Nope, you are correct. Yeah, I from what I'm seeing,
no,
he has not hosted SNL.
Am I allowed to change my answer?
He has not hosted SNL, but Hugh Jackman has, and this is what's funny about it. Hugh Jackman did an episode of SNL in 2024, I think. No, wait. Hugh Jackman did an episode of SNL where he portrayed Superman, and then Henry Cavill turned around and played Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I personally, I think Henry Cavill is a very funny individual, and I think really leaning in to his past of things like Superman, like The Witcher, his Warhammer and D&D love, and he honestly, I thought his part in Deadpool and Wolverine was absolutely hilarious. I feel like he would be really well on it.
Would you want to change your answer to, Nick?
Ryan Reynolds.
Ooh.
Oh, has he not hosted? I could have swore.
I don't think. Maybe.
Let's see. Ryan Reynolds, SNL. Ryan Reynolds. Right. All I got is Ryan Reynolds denies writing Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni SNL 50 joke. No, Tina Fey wrote the script for most of SNL 50. Yes, he has hosted. Ryan Reynolds has hosted. He hosted an episode where Lady Gaga was the musical guest.
Okay. Well then. My answer remains Gabriel Iglesias then.
Yeah, it was season 35, episode 2, according to IMDb.
Oh, a while ago.
Yep. This was during the Fred Armisen, Will Forte, Bill Hader era. Jason, Andy, they were all there for that one. Kristen.
Okay.
Oh, Abby Elliott. I remember her. Abby Elliott and Nassim Pedrad, they used to, together with, I think, Vanessa Bayer, the three of them used to do Kardashian skits. Like, Nassim Pedrad played a perfect Kim Kardashian.
Yes.
I remember that show. I also a skit that I think it was Vanessa Bayer and I want to say Nassim Pedrad did, usually with different hosts, was this skit where these completely brain dead porn stars are selling different products like champagne and stuff, and they keep mispronouncing it and saying like innuendos and shit. It is so funny but so stupid. But I love it for that. All right, well, with our Wish hosts out of the way, I say that's a good part. That's a good place to stop this one. We covered a lot of ground, honestly, for a lot of different eras of SNL and a lot of different cast members.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, so when we revisit this topic 2 episodes from now, we'll be talking about the music to come out of SNL and popular more musical skits, not just The Lonely Island, but there's other things they've done and some other really good songs to come out of there. In fact, Ariana Grande, when she hosted recently, did a digital short that was a song about going to her best friend's house and slowly realizing that her best friend's dad is a serial killer and realizing what the red flags were later. It was great. Like, just go on YouTube and look up Ariana Grande best friend's house SNL. It is it is great. It's like it looks like something A24 would do, honestly. So yeah, we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the movies that came out of SNL, like Coneheads and Hot Rod and Wayne's World and stuff like that. So MacGruber,
Love it.
So yeah, so look forward to all that in the next one. But for our actual next episode, it's a little surprise. We're gonna do something a little different. No preparation will be needed. It's just gonna be a fun little thing that we're gonna do. Me and Nick have done this at least once per season, so I think he knows what it is. But we're not
Sure do. I'm not saying shit.
Yeah, but we're not gonna say it out loud yet. It's gonna be a surprise for Brooksy here.
I look forward to it, I guess.
Yes, it'll be. Look, the only thinking you'll have to do is when it actually happens, but it's not. It's not the kind of thinking that you have to prepare for. It's more like on the spot stuff.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So you'll see. So look forward to that because that's gonna be fun. Pretty sure the audience knows what we're talking about. And until then, let me know your thoughts if you're watching this on YouTube in the comments down below about some of your favorite eras and cast members and skits from SNL history. And, or you can send me an email at podcastoversoul@gmail.com, or you can message me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Oversoul 53. You can find Nick over on TikTok and Instagram and Blue Sky and Twitter at TheGamingFiend1. And Brooksy is on Instagram at BrooksyMyBoy. That's boy with an I. And until next time, stay safe out there, everybody, and we'll catch you in the next one. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Later.